Welcome to today's live reading from Brilliant as the Sun, a retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, the sages of Naimisharanya. We're going to read from chapter 11, the Glories of Dwarka. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Krishna arrives in Dwarka and is greeted by his citizens and family members. Chapter 11, verses 1 to 5. When Krishna reached the outskirts of Dwarka, he blew his conch to herald his arrival. The plump white shell gripped by the Lord's graceful hand appeared reddened by the touch of his ruby lips. It looked like a white swan playing among red lotuses. Hearing that sound, which strikes fear into fear personified, the citizens ran out to greet him like joyful children, greeting their long-absent father. As if offering a lamp to the sun, they made presentations of gifts to the Lord while reciting prayers and praises. Chapter 11, verses 6 to 10. The citizens said, "Self-sufficient and fully satisfied within yourself, you are worshipped by the best of gods and are the final goal of life. You are the supreme transcendent Lord, untouched by time." They praised Krishna as their father, mother, spiritual master, and worshipful deity. Feeling greatly blessed to see him, they expressed their heartfelt affection. "You rarely visit even the celestials, but today we can see your smiling face and your auspicious spiritual form." They lamented that when he was away, the days dragged unbearably, with every moment seeming like a million years. At that time, our eyes are useless, as if bereft of sunlight. How can we survive in your absence? Glancing benevolently over the citizens, Krishna entered the city, which displayed the opulence of all seasons with flower gardens, orchards, lotus-filled lakes, and delightful ashrams. Countless flags and festoons adorned the buildings, and gateways and arches were decorated with colorful signs and garlands. Scented waters was sprinkled on the spotless roads. Flowers, rice, and seeds were decoratively strewn about. In every doorway stood auspicious items such as pots of yogurt, milk, and water, as well as fruits, sugarcane, and candles. Billows of fragrant incense smoked wafted throughout the city. Noting all this, Krishna smiled with pleasure. Chapter 11, verses 17 to 33. The Lord's relatives came out to greet him on golden chariots, like a stream of gods issuing from Amravati. Along with them came effulgent brahmanas clad in simple loincloths and intoning sacred hymns. Musical instruments sounded while dancers, dramatists, and singers made impromptu performances depicting Krishna's pastimes. Beautiful ladies sat behind veils in their jeweled carriages, smiling shyly as he passed. Krishna got down from his chariot to greet everyone according to their status. To some he showed respect by bowing his head, others he embraced. With some he shook hands, and to others he offered benedictions. The Lord respectfully greeted representatives of all social orders, surrounded by joyous citizens singing his praises. He walked toward his palace, his head protected from the bright sun by a white parasol. Proceeding gracefully along the road, his dark body adorned with yellow garments, he was fanned on either side with white yak-tail fans and showered with flower petals. It appeared as if the sun, moon, lightning, and rainbows simultaneously surrounded a dark cloud. Krishna then entered the vast marble palace, where his father Vasudeva lived with his 16 wives. They shed tears of joy to see Krishna, and he respectfully placed his head at their feet. One by one, beginning with his father, his mother Devaki sat the Lord on her lap, and milk flowed from her breast out of affection. After taking permission from Vasudeva, the Lord left and then simultaneously entered his 16,108 palaces, expanding himself into that many forms. When each of Krishna's queens saw him arrive, they stood up quickly, though they wanted to immediately run to him. Out of feminine shyness, they checked themselves. Covering their charming faces with the ends of the silk saris, they looked about bashfully. When they caught the Lord's glance, they each embraced him within their hearts and then sent their sons forward to physically embrace him. Despite themselves, they shed tears, overwhelmed with emotion. The Lord smiled at them, reciprocating their pure love, speaking gentle words of affection. He entered his inner quarters with each of his wives and rested for the night, satisfied that his mission of killing the miscreants was complete. Sutta paused in his narration to take a sip of water. Shaunak sat in silent thought for some moments. Hearing how Krishna was happy that the wrongdoers had been slain, he again wondered about the Lord's neutrality and asked Sutta to explain it further. Sutta said, Krishna is equally disposed to all. He merely reciprocates with our desires. Those who wish to aggressively expand their material power and influence are brought together by Lord's arrangement. They thus fight and destroy one another. Krishna takes no part in such conflicts. He is like the wind which causes friction between bamboo stalks and so sparks a fire. Is this because Krishna has no material desire? Asked Shaunak. Exactly, replied Sutta. How is it then that he enjoys with his wives? He seems to be affected by lust just like an ordinary man. Could any normal person expand himself into more than 16,000 forms, each acting differently with each of his wives? Krishna was merely reciprocating with their desires to have him as their husband. Although they were the most beautiful women in creation, and although they tried to allure him with furtive glances, coy smiles, and feminine gestures which could overcome even Shiva himself, the Lord was never agitated. Indeed, Cupid threw down his flower bow in frustration, unable to even slightly disturb the Lord's mind with his arrows of passion. How fortunate were those ladies to have such intimate association with Krishna, stated Shaunak. Can anyone become his wife? Yes, but it requires complete surrender to Lord. As the women of Hastinapur said, his wives must have performed devotional service over many lifetimes. They were imbued with prema, which alone can attract Krishna. Chapter 11, verses 37 to 39. Why is it that the Lord's loving exchanges with his wives so much resemble worldly dealings? Asked Shaunak, knowing people would find this difficult to comprehend. Only fools think this way, my friend, said Sutta, because they compare the Lord to themselves. They cannot understand that he is never affected by lust. Consider this for a moment. Whoever takes shelter of the Lord becomes completely detached from worldly enjoyments. How then can material pleasures attract the Lord? Shaunak asked about Krishna's wives. From what you say, it seems they were mistaken in thinking Krishna was attached to them. Since they were pure devotees, how can they be in such ignorance? This is a different kind of ignorance, said Sutta with a laugh. Just as the atheists cannot understand the Lord, so too are his pure devotees bewildered. Their confusion, however, is induced by the Lord's spiritual potency to facilitate loving exchanges with him. It is entirely different from the ignorance of materialistic people, which is caused by lust. Though the Lord is never controlled by anyone, his wives' innocent belief that they controlled him with their love gave him immense pleasure. The sages sat spellbound. They had simply expected to hear about the reason for Parikshit's renunciation and his meeting with Shukadev. To illustrate King Parikshit's high devotional status, Sutta had begun to explain how Krishna had saved him while still in his mother's womb due to devotional ecstasy. Sutta had unexpectedly recounted Kunti's prayers, Bhishma's passing away, and Krishna's return to Dwarka. And this finishes today's chapter. We will begin Parikshit born, chapter number 12, next time. Thanks for joining. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.